It was the spring of 2015. I was camping in northern Utah. My normal camping style is typically in at dark, out at first light, seldom staying more than one night in the same place. This area was unexpectedly beautiful, and I decided to set up something of a base camp and stay a few days. This allowed me to catch up on charging my devices, clean up my rig, and organize a few things. You know, general housekeeping. I was on public land where dispersed camping was allowed, so I had my pick of some great spots. I found a really nice campsite over by the Uinta River. It was nice and flat beside the river with a great view of the nearby mountains. Since I planned to be there multiple days, I pulled out my ground tent and set up a proper camp. While I was busy working, I got the feeling I was being watched. Now I have spent a lot of time camping solo. I'm not exactly the skittish type. I wasn't really scared, just didn't feel alone anymore. I stood up and took a look around. At first, I didn't see anything. Then, down by the river, I saw a big black dog. He was just standing there looking in my direction. For a very brief moment, we locked eyes. Then, he trotted off into the thicker wooded area and out of sight. Nothing threatening, just seemed to be curious. I went about finishing my camp chores and got out my area maps to see what adventures were close by. It looked like there was no shortage of nice hiking trails close by, and a few followed along the river's edge. I felt like my decision was then made for me. I needed to go explore a trail by the river. I grabbed a water bottle and my trusty hiking stick, and away I went. I had been hiking for a solid 30 minutes or so when I heard a noise somewhere behind me down the trail a ways. I turned to look, and there was that same black dog about 100 yards back. Once again, he seemed more curious than anything. Once he was aware that I had seen him, he turned and trotted back down the trail away from me. I finished up my hike with no further incidents. Once I got back to camp, I just sat around for a bit and then started working on my dinner. I whipped up a couple of tacos because, yeah, tacos. After dinner, I got out my tripod and set my camera up for some night sky photography. I kicked back and just took in the beauty around me for a while. I finally decided to turn in for the night and gathered my things and crawled into my tent. As I was dozing off, I could have sworn I heard something like a wolf baying at the moon in the distance. Around 3 a.m, I woke up to the sound of something or someone shuffling around my camp. As quietly as I could, I slid the zipper down a bit on my window. As I would have predicted, there was the same black dog, only now he was just a few feet away. Being so close, it was very clear that the black dog was actually a black wolf. He turned towards me, and as we locked eyes, I could feel it to my very core. I don't know how to explain the feeling. It was like being terrified yet totally at peace. The milliseconds that passed felt like a lifetime. As the wolf broke the connection, he once again began trotting off towards the river. By this time, my heart was steadily pumping adrenaline through my veins. There would be no going back to sleep. I did attempt to read a book and even fired up a Jack Reacher movie on my iPad to no avail. Soon enough, the sun began peeking over the surrounding mountaintops, bringing light to the valley. I'm not really a chicken, but I figured my luck with this particular Canis lupus would not stay so good much longer. Me, myself, and I had a team meeting and voted unanimously to pack up and move along. I crawled out of the tent and began taking inventory to see if Mr. Wolf had actually done any damage. That's when I noticed a very odd detail. As I looked around the dusty ground of my camp, I didn't see any wolf prints, or dog prints, or any kind of animal prints. What I did see, however, gave me chills that I can feel to this day. Other than my boot and sandal prints, the only prints around camp were 100% barefoot human prints. Now I'd bet my truck those tracks had not been there the day before. I paid extra close attention to the area where the wolf was standing when we had our special moment during the night. Nothing there but human tracks. That was enough to light a fire under me, and the camp got loaded up pretty fast. As I made my way out of camp and onto the Forest Service Road, I could feel eyes on my back. I didn't bother to look this time and just rolled on south. Pretty soon I came to a small town called La Pointe. I pulled into a gas station, probably the only one in the small town. As I was pumping gas, a man walked over from his truck and was checking out my rig. This often happens when you have gear hanging all over your vehicle. He asked a few questions about the truck and asked about my plans for camping, where I had come from, and the like. I told him that I had camped up by the Winter River the night before, and he got a strange look on his face. He asked me where it was, what happened while I was there, and what I had seen. I didn't give all the details, but I did tell him that a big dog, or possibly a wolf, was hanging around my camp, and that caused me to cut my stay short. He then asked if I knew where I was. I said somewhere in northern Utah, right? He pointed down the road and said, "Skinwalker Ranch is just a few miles that way. You couldn't pay me enough to camp beside the Uinta." After hearing this, the gas station burrito I had just eaten threatened to exit my body any way it possibly could. The man cut our conversation short as if I were now somehow tainted, and he left post-haste. I'm pretty sure just a few miles down the road I passed the backside of Skinwalker Ranch, but I put several hours and a couple hundred miles between me and it before I looked for my next camp.